All right, fifth grade scientists, welcome back. Mrs. Steele here. We are doing lesson 4 of systems interactions, and we're going to have a little bit of a change of topic. We've been looking at, things that come from very small to immensely large, and now we're really going to get into the meat of what we are doing for this unit, and we're going to learn about Earth's major systems. Now, I actually really find this fascinating. I hope that you have so much interest in this like me. And really find this just really interesting. We are going to be doing a reading today, and I know nonfiction reading, especially in science, is usually difficult, and normally we would have our friends here to have a discussion and talk about it. Obviously, we cannot do that in distance learning, but that's okay. I will talk you through it. I will break it down. The great news is you can watch my video more than once. And also with that, if you have a way of virtually doing this with a friend and watching the lesson together, I highly recommend that. Have some discussions, or if you just have somebody at home that's willing to listen and talk with you about science, have them come. Learning together is fun. Okay, so systems interactions. So this is a Google document. You should have received it somehow from your teacher, either through Google Classroom, just through Google itself, or perhaps it was assigned through Seesaw, and it will take you to the Google document, and it looks something like this. So I'm going to break it down into easier pieces. Now, I made mine a little bit more crisp and cleaner to look at. So here's Earth's major systems. So Earth systems interactions. Earth's major systems are the geosphere, the hydrosphere, which is the water and ice, the atmosphere, our air, and biosphere, living things, including humans. Now, these systems interact in multiple ways to affect Earth's surface materials and processes. We'll get to that. Interactions can occur naturally. Think of natural things. For example, when an earthquake, that's part of the geosphere. Geosphere is all the rocks, okay? So when an earthquake happens in the geosphere, and people, animals, or plants, which is our biosphere, living things are biosphere, are killed by a resulting tsunami, which is our hydrosphere, because of the earthquake caused a tsunami. Look at that. An earthquake included our biosphere, geosphere, and hydrosphere. That's one example of natural processes. However, interactions are also caused by humans. For example, when humans pull oil out of the ground, the biosphere is using the geosphere to get oil. And then spill it in the ocean, that's our hydrosphere, killing off an entire ecosystem. Our living things, our biosphere. So not always pleasant. So far, those were not very good examples of interactions with one another. But that was just 2 examples, and it shows how multiple spheres are together. Okay, so first we're going to talk about our hydrosphere. Okay, and that is the water and ice on Earth. So the hydrosphere covers most of Earth's surface, nearly 70%, right? And is made up of the Earth's solid, the ice, liquid, our water, and gaseous, moisture in the air. So from the water cycle, we know that there's water molecules that evaporate. So we do have that moisture in the air. The ocean supports a variety of ecosystems and organisms, which is our biosphere, shapes landforms, our geosphere, and influences climate, part of our atmosphere. Rainfall helps shape the land and affects the types of living things found in a region. And the ocean, for example, supports many different ecosystems and organisms, our biosphere, on the planet. So rainfall does interact with our geosphere, right? Rain coming down a mountain carves different paths. Our hydrosphere are rivers, right? Carving out paths in mountain valleys. So it interacts, and that always affects the biosphere of things living there, right? Here's an example. If you've ever gone surfing, you have participated in an interaction between the hydrosphere and the atmosphere. The motion of the atmosphere happens because the sun heats the surface of the Earth, causing hot air to rise and cool air to sink, okay? That's what happens with our warming of our sun. This causes this movement of air, right, is what we feel as wind in our atmosphere. Wind moving over the surface of the ocean our hydrosphere, causes waves. And waves are powerful at shaping the land everywhere on Earth. Fascinating, huh? And think about it. Wind helps create waves. If you just blow on top of a glass of water, you can make mini waves, right? So once again, it's part of our solid, our ocean, rainfall. All of this is all part of our hydrosphere. Right? So cool. So cool. Okay, now we're going to learn about our atmosphere. So the atmosphere is made up of all of Earth's air, which extends all the way to the border of outer space, 7 miles high. Okay? 2 gases make up most of the atmosphere. Nitrogen, which is 78% of the atmosphere, and oxygen, which is 21% of the atmosphere. If you add that up, you'll notice it's not 100% because there are a lot of mix of other gases. They're just not as much. Now you'll notice we breathe in oxygen and our atmosphere isn't mainly oxygen, right? Kind of a fun thing to think about. And if you've ever heard of people climbing Mount Everest, there's less and less oxygen. And well, that's a whole nother story. So wind and clouds in the atmosphere interact with the landforms to determine patterns of weather. And our landforms are part of our geosphere. One of Earth's major system interactions takes place between the atmosphere and our hydrosphere. Every time it rains, you are observing this interaction. It begins when the sun heats the Earth's ocean, hydrosphere, causing liquid water to heat and turn into gas known as water vapor. The water vapor becomes so light it moves into the air, atmosphere. As the water vapor moves higher and higher into the atmosphere, it loses heat energy, causing it to condense into our clouds and then into rain. Most of the rain on Earth falls right back down into the ocean. That makes sense because most of the Earth is ocean. However, some of it falls down onto the land where it's used by our plants and animals, which is part of our biosphere. Right? Seriously, cool. Okay, next, our geosphere. It's our solid rock. The geosphere contains all of the cold, hard, solid rock at the Earth's surface, as well as the hot, molten rock below the surface, the magma of volcanoes. Soil, which is formed from physical and chemical reaction between rocks, water, air, and plants and animals, is also part of the geosphere. So you're probably wondering, how does animals have anything to do with soil? Well, when an animal dies, it becomes fossilized over periods of millions of years. It too is part of the geosphere. It becomes part of it, right? Water, hydrosphere, ice, our hydrosphere, wind, our atmosphere, and living organisms, our biosphere, and gravity break rocks, soil, and sediments into smaller particles and move them around, causing different types of system interactions. Think about it. We interact with the biosphere and break stuff down. So does everything else. So, for example, when you go to the beach and you dig your feet in the sand, you are experiencing an interaction between the geosphere and the hydrosphere. The only reason the sand is there is because the ocean waves at the shore have broken up larger rocks over many years. The waves have broken the rocks down so much, and it makes the rocks into fine grains of sand. All the sand, all the sand you see on the beach has been made this way. It's rocks getting tumbled around in that hydrosphere by the ocean that breaks it up and creates our beaches. Without the waves of the hydrosphere, there would be no sand in the geosphere. And think about it. Have you ever dug a hole? Have you ever dug in mud? You're playing with the geosphere. You're changing the landscape and perhaps disrupting any biosphere creatures that live there. I love doing that. All right, last one, biosphere, the living things, us. The biosphere is made up of all living things on Earth, from the smallest single-celled organism, you'll learn that in 6th grade, to the blue whale, our largest animal. It is estimated that 3 to 30 million different types of plants and animals live here on Earth. Because life is good at adapting to different environments found on Earth, the biosphere can be seen in every other system. Every system. Life is found in the atmosphere, in the form of birds. Life is found at the deepest part of the hydrosphere, where there's no sunlight. It can be found on the highest mountain. Geosphere, in the form of moss that grows at the top of Mount Everest. Pretty fascinating, huh? Human activities, what we do, are also part of the biosphere. they can have a major impact on different sphere interactions. For example, when we use fertilizers to make our lawns as green as possible, the little amount of fertilizer that gets spread on the sidewalk, because you're going to get it there, gets washed into the ocean, our hydrosphere. When it gets there, it causes a chemical imbalance. Those chemicals shouldn't be in our water, right? And it allows some algae to grow fast, but killing fish as well. This then has other consequences for the animals that needed those fish for survival. So this chain reaction. That also talks about littering and how those get washed into the ocean and all the consequences that have. Or just driving cars, right? Human interactions, we have pollutants that then go in our atmosphere. So we really got to start thinking about how we're impacting everything throughout our spheres. Right? Yeah. Okay, so here is a scientific model. If we take a look at this diagram, you can see our geosphere, which is kind of that rock. Our biosphere are our living things, our plants and animals and humans. Our atmosphere is the air up in the sky, and our hydrosphere, which is shown here as a lake, but also has arrows going up. Why? That's right, water vapor, and then it also shows arrows coming back down as rain. Okay, what I would love to do is go for a walk and identify parts of the geosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere that you see on your walk. Literally pause me. Go look. If we were in the classroom, we'd be walking the campus right now, looking for all these different elements. And if you don't have time right now, wait to go on a family walk. It's a great time to make a good connection. Okay, now last. Your assignment is going to be just questions you have. Hopefully you have some really cool questions. Maybe how we interact with different spheres. And think of a personal connection. Think of one of your favorite outdoor activities. Identify what spheres are involved. This is just for fun. So for example, soccer, right? Okay, so let's see, does it include the biosphere, living things? Yes. Us being the living thing, plus what's the other part of the biosphere you're interacting with as you play soccer? The field, right? The grass. So we have the biosphere, the geosphere, well, you have to have the land to do it on, right? That solid ground. The atmosphere, I guess we need that oxygen being part of the living, being part of this biosphere. Now the hydrosphere, maybe not as involved here, but obviously in the end, our field, our biosphere, living things need that water. So the hydrosphere, not as much. But think about what activities you like, even if it's playing with chalk. Think about where your chalk comes from, right? If it is swimming, that's a good one. That's an easy one. Okay, boating, whatever it might be, even if it's just riding your bike. I love those. So you're going to write down some questions you have, and then finally a summary. What did you learn here? Go ahead, type it out, and I will see you next time. Bye.